everyone, I'm Sanvi from mybookstash. Today I will be reading a sample of the book Geronimo Stilton, The Kingdom of Fantasy from Amazon Kindle store. Rats! Why today of all days? It was the morning of June 21 and I had just set paw in the office. Right away, I could tell it wasn't going to be a good day. My staff was running around like a pack of rats in a maze, and everyone was complaining about something. Geronimo, the air conditioner's broken, yelled my secretary, Mousella MacMouser. Geronimo, we're out of coffee, shrieked Blasco Tabasco, one of my designers. Geronimo, the computers are all down, cried my proofreader, Mickey Misprint. Geronimo, I want a raise, squeaked my assistant, Pinky Pick. Geronimo, did you know you had a pimple on your snout? My cousin Trap asked. Was it true? I grabbed a mirror. Rats, there really was a pimple on my snout. Oh, why did I have to get a pimple today, of all days? After a million hours, the day finally ended. I was exhausted. I headed for home. That's when things went from bad to worse. I began walking home just as it started raining. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning almost hit my tail. My fur stood on end. My teeth chattered. My paws went weak. Oh, why did I almost get struck by lightning today of all days? The lights go out in the attic. At last, I made it home. All the lights were out. Cheese niblets. I would have to go to the attic to get the candles. In the attic, I stepped on my grandma Honey Whisker's rake. It hit me right in the snout. Ouch! I grabbed onto Grandfather William's bookcase. It tumbled down on top of me. Yikes! I rested my paw on my cousin's Trap's roller skate and went flying through the air. My head crashed through a portrait of my Dutch ancestor, Ludwig van der Stilton. I ended up with my Aunt Sweetfur's little straw hat perched right on top of my head. Squeak! I managed to mumble. Then I fainted. When I came to, it was the middle of the night. I tried to remember what I was doing up in the attic. Then I felt the lump on my head. Ouch! It all came flooding back to me. I had been looking for some candles. I opened up the drawer of an old dresser. I found a candlestick and I lit it. That's better, I said with a sigh. Did I tell you I'm afraid of the dark? I looked around the attic. I spotted a bookcase of stories from when I was a young mouselet. My sister Thea's tricycle sat in one corner. I smiled. Even on a tricycle, Thea had been a daredevil. An old bedsheet lay in a heap on the floor. It was my cousin Trap's ghost costume from long ago. He used to love to scare me with it. I rolled my eyes. If there's one thing you should know about my cousin, it's that he loves to get under my fur. Just then, I saw a shadow. My whiskers stood on end. My heart began to pound. I was so scared I couldn't even squeak. Then I noticed something. The shadow was coming from my mannequin, propped against the wall. It had my Aunt Sugarfur's wedding dress on it. What a nincompoop I was. Get a grip, Geronimo, I told myself. Right at that moment, the attic window burst open. Slam! The mysterious crystal music box. I jumped a mile high. Oh, well, okay. Maybe not an actual mile, but you get the picture. I reached out to shut the windows. The storm was over and the clouds had cleared. I saw the trail of a shooting star light up in the sky. I was about to make a wish when suddenly the star's trail came in through the window. It leapt up at a mysterious object at my feet. It was a glittering crystal music box. I scratched my head. Now, how did that get there? A delicate scent of roses. The music box shone in the candlelight. Precious stones were set into its sides. A ruby, a topaz, a citrine, an emerald, a sapphire, and an amethyst. A sparkling diamond was set at the very top of the box. Letters were engraved on the front. They seemed to be part of some strange alphabet. I raised the lid. The music box was lined with red velvet. A scent of sweet roses spread through the room. A melody tinkled softly in the air. I was starting to feel a little strange. It was as if the music box had put me under some sort of magical spell. For a moment, I thought I saw a tiny beam of light dancing inside the music box. I blinked. I knew I shouldn't have skipped my appointment with Dr. Squinty Snout. I needed new glasses. Then I realized that I wasn't looking at a beam of light. I was looking at a glittering golden key. What was it for? Next to the key lay a tiny rose-colored scroll with a wax seal. Carefully, I unrolled the paper. It contained a mysterious message written in that strange alphabet. How fascinating! I pulled out a magnifying glass to check it out. Just then, I heard a rustling noise. I looked up and saw the most amazing sight. The star trail had turned into a stairway made out of golden dust. Far, far away at the top of the stairs, I could make out a little golden door. A stairway of golden dust. Now let me tell you, I am not the bravest mouse on the block. In fact, I guess you could say I'm a bit of a scaredy mouse. Wow, okay, I am a total scaredy mouse. But I was curious about that door. I just had to take a look. I packed up a few supplies in my backpack and crept slowly up the stairs. The golden door. My heart hammered under my fur. My paws trembled. At last, I reached the little golden door. These words were inscribed on it. You must go back to being small if you wish to enter at all. Okay, now I was getting really scared. That's enough excitement for one day, I decided. But when I turned around to go back, I discovered that the golden staircase was disappearing. Rotten rat's teeth. I tried to open the little door in front of me. It was locked. Just then, I noticed a tiny keyhole. I took out the golden key and slid it into the keyhole. It worked. I crouched down and walked through the door. Oh, knight in shining armor! I looked around. I was in a crystal cave. What was this place? My thoughts were interrupted by a croaking voice. Good day to you, fair knight in shining armor, the voice said. What wonderful deed will you perform today? I went around. That's when I saw him. He had lumpy greenish skin, large bulging eyes, and a triple chin. Can you guess what kind of creature I am talking about? Think lily pads, flies, and a thing that goes croak in the night. Yes. Yeah, he was a frog. But this was no ordinary frog. He was wearing a jacket and vest made out of red velvet. He had on green tights and a funny three-pointed hat. I watched as he pulled out a piece of paper from his bag. Then he picked up a strange feathered pen and stared at me. "Let's try this again, shall we?" he said. "Oh, fair knight in shining armor, what wonderful deed will you perform today?" I chewed my whiskers. Cheese niblets, this frog really had me wrong. "My name is Stilton, Geronimo Stilton. I'm not a knight. I'm not in shining armor. I'm a mouse," I tried to explain. "And I was in the attic, and then the music box, that is, the window." The frog shook his head. "Sorry, knight, that just won't work. Your story is too boring. I need something heart-pounding, something with sword fight, dragons, and treasure," he insisted. "After all, I'm writing a book about your adventures. So, let's see. You call yourself Sir Geronimo of Stilton. Is that right?" I tried to correct him, but the strange frog wouldn't listen. Instead, he started scribbling away. Through the golden door came a knight in shining armor, Sir Geronimo of Stilton. He was tall, handsome, and mighty, with proud blue eyes and radiant blonde fur. He was wearing a suit of silver armor that glimmered in the moonlight, and his invincible sword was... "I'm just an ordinary mouse." What was this crazy frog talking about? I don't have blue eyes, I don't have blonde fur, and a suit of armor would clash with my tie. Still, the frog, whose name was Scribblehopper, wouldn't listen. He rambled on and on. Then he pointed at my snout. "How fascinating," he croaked. "I've never met a knight with a pimple before." I gnashed my teeth together. "Keep your cool, Geronimo," I told myself. But it wasn't easy. "I am not a knight," I squeaked at the top of my lungs, "and leave my pimple alone." The frog smirked. "Of course you're a knight," he chuckled, "and I'm a literary frog. I am writing a best-selling adventure tale and you are the star. Here in the kingdom of fantasy, you can have lots of adventures. You'll meet dragons and giants and terrifying sea serpents." "The kingdom of fantasy?" I gulped. It sounded like a horribly scary place. Oh, how I missed my safe, cozy mouse hole. I took off my glasses so I could cry freely. The knight in shining armor rode fearlessly on his trusty white horse. His red cape flapped in the wind. His whiskers stood at attention. His sword clanged at his side. Scribblehopper didn't notice, but he did notice the music box in my backpack. "Great jumping tadpoles," he croaked. "That belongs to Blossom, queen of the fairies." In a flash, Scribblehopper had pulled the rose-colored scroll out of the music box. "This message is written in the Fantasian alphabet," he went on. Suddenly, his eyes bulged out. "Leaping lizards," he cried. "Queen Blossom is in terrible danger. She says that only you can help her." I twirled my tail nervously. I wasn't a hero. I was just an ordinary mouse. "I know it's hard to believe the Queen of Fairies would call on you," Scribblehopper snorted. "I mean, look at the pimple on your snout. It's awful. But what Queen Blossom wants, Queen Blossom gets. We will have to cross 6 whole kingdoms to reach the kingdom of the fairies. So let's get hopping. Let's get jumping. Let's make like bees and buzz on out of here." I sighed. What could I do? As I said, I'm not a brave mouse, but I would never ignore a cry of help. I took a deep breath. Then I raised my paw in the air. I, Geronimo Stilton, promise to save the Queen of the Fairies, I announced, trying to look tough. Too bad my knees felt as weak as cream cheese and I had a pimple on my snout. The Kingdom of the Witches. Scribblehopper grinned. "Good move, Sir Geronimo of Stilton," he approved. Scribblehopper told me we were about to enter the first kingdom. It was called the Kingdom of the Witches. It was always night time in the kingdom because the witches hated sunlight. I gulped. Did I mention I'm afraid of the dark? The kingdom was protected by giant scorpions. I cringed. Did I mention I'm afraid of bugs? The witches had a bad habit of turning strangers into piles of ashes. I began to sob uncontrollably. Did I mention I'm afraid of being burned to a crisp by a nasty witch? Scribblehopper patted my shoulder. Don't worry, Sir Geronimo, he croaked. This kingdom will be easy for a brave knight like you. No sweat, no big deal, no problemo. I felt faint, but the frog didn't notice. He picked up his pen. Any noble words to proclaim before entering the kingdom of the witches? He asked. By now, I was beside myself with fear. Oh, how did I get myself in this horrible mess? Yes, I have something to say, I whispered. I'm scared. The frog ignored me. Instead, he began scribbling. The knight in shining armor boldly urged onto his white horse, shouting, Never fear, I'm on my way. Sir Geronimo of Stilton will save the day. A nightmarish land. On shaky paws, I walked through the ruby door. At that moment, I heard a sound coming from the music box. It was a musical note, a middle C, to be exact. How strange! I pulled out the box from my pocket. The ruby had sprung open. Hidden beneath the ruby was a mysterious little plant. How odd! Scribblehopper pointed to a map. A very scary map. This is a map to the kingdom of the witches. The names of the place made my fur crawl. Black swamp, moldy mountain, nightmare forest. I wanted to go home. I want to go back. I want to go home. I want to go to Rattlin's tropical resort and health spa and sip mozzarella milkshakes by the beach. I sobbed. It's too late, Sir Geronimo, Scribblehopper said. You should have thought of that before you stepped through that door. Now shake a paw. You don't want to keep the Queen of the Fairies waiting. Then he pulled out his pen and wrote. The knight in shining armor looked over the map of the kingdom of the witches. Then he laughed. This place looks like fun for a brave warrior like me, he observed. We made our way to Pale Ghost Peak. The wind howled furiously in our ears. Ooh! Then we trampled through the Wicked Witch woods. Bare branches from the trees clawed at my fur. Next, we crossed over the Lake of Tears, the waterfall of sighs, and the stinky river of regret. Rancid rat hairs, this place was depressing. After the river, we made it to the Restless Ghost Cemetery. Holy cheese, I was exhausted. I had to lean against a tombstone so I could catch my breath. I just hoped the ghost wouldn't find me. Nights without hearts. Suddenly, the ground began to shake beneath my paws. Cheese sticks! It was a restless ghost. I just knew it. The phantom was coming for me. I wondered what it'd been up to under those tombstones. Was it shooting the breeze with some skeletons? Playing dominoes with the undead? It was all too gruesome to picture. I closed my eyes. But when I opened them, I saw no ghosts rising up from the ground. Instead, I saw a band of knights on horseback galloping right at us. It's the Heartless horsemen! Quick, hide! Scribblehopper cried. In a flash, we ducked behind two tombstones. Who are the Heartless horsemen? I asked the frog. 2 hours later, Scribblehopper finished his answer. Did I mention the frog likes to talk? He's a bigger chatterbox than my cousin Gabby Fur. She once talked the ear of a statue at the Museum of Modern Art. It took 3 tubes of super glue to get the ear back on. Anyway, it seems these horsemen had been good knights at one time, but then they turned terribly evil. They became part of the Dark Army. They spread bad will and rotten feelings around the kingdom. I shivered as the horsemen passed by. I was feeling pretty rotten myself. Oh, what miserable luck to be stuck in this terrifying place. The red-eyed monster. Soon, we found ourselves in the bare-bones desert. Skeletons dotted the landscape as far as the eye could see. Come, Geronimo of Stilton, Scribblehopper called. It's time for you to face your first challenge. I broke out into a cold sweat. First challenge? Was this whole place challenging enough? Scribblehopper didn't seem to notice that I was sweating like a sprinkler. He pointed out two sharp tusk shapes rising out of a mound of red earth. Here you must battle Arachne, the red-eyed monster, he said. My fur rose with fright. Thoughts raced through my mind. In ancient Greek, Arachne, pronounced Arachne, means spider. Was the red-eyed monster a spider? Before I could scream, I want my mommy, I found myself stuck in an invisible spider web. Help! I screamed in horror. Scribblehopper had been caught too. He croaked with fright. The red earth trembled. 8 massive, hairy legs stretched out before us. 2 enormous red eyes stared at me hypnotically. I couldn't move. I couldn't think. I couldn't breathe. An eensy-weensy spider could make my whiskers tremble. But this giant one had me paralyzed. The red-eyed monster crawled towards me, creeping over the bones. At last, I found my voice. I am traveling to the kingdom of the fairies. I must save Queen Blossom, I squeaked. The spider rolled her large eyes. Fairies! Who cares about fairies? She hissed. Arachne only takes orders from the queen of the witches, and she tells Arachne to stop all strangers like you in the bare bones desert. I could feel Scribblehopper shaking next to me. Good night. I think if you told Arachne a story, she might like it, he suggested. I nodded. Would you like to hear a tale about your name, Arachne? I tried. The spider yawned. Hurry up and tell it. But remember, Arachne doesn't like tricks, she warned. I started to tell the tale. The myth of Arachne, an ancient Greek legend. Long ago, many gods and goddesses lived on Mount Olympus. The goddess of wisdom and arts was named Athena. At that time, there also lived a maiden called Arachne. She was a talented weaver. This girl has golden hands, people said. What an artist, they proclaimed. All this praise made Arachne proud, and soon she became boastful. If I challenged the goddess Athena, I would be victorious, she announced. One day, the gossipy nymphs of the woods repeated Arachne's words to Athena. The goddess became angry. She challenged Arachne to a weaving contest. The day of the contest, Athena wove with all her might. But when she finished, realized that Arachne's work was better than hers. Angry at her defeat, the goddess ripped her rival's work into 1,000 pieces. Then she transformed the maiden into a spider. And so to this day, when you see a spider weaving its web, think of the fate of the maiden Arachne. The unhappy weaver turned into a hairy spider. Everyone needs friends. I finished telling my tale. Arachne stared at me. Her eyes grew huge. Suddenly, she began to shake. She began to sniff. She opened her jaws wide, baring her razor-sharp fangs. Is this how it would all end? I had become lunch meat for a monstrous spider. But instead of eating, Arachne started crying. Boo-hoo, she sobbed. Thank you for the story, my friend, the spider said. I haven't cried like this since I was a baby spider just hatched from my egg. I am so bored and lonely here in the desert. There's nothing to do all day except devour passerby. I paled, but I felt sorry for her. Loneliness is a terrible thing. I mean, everyone needs friends, even giant spiders. And so I made a deal. If you let us go, I will write down my story for you. That way you can read it over and over again. It will keep you company. The spider cried tears of happiness. I cried happily too. I was going to live. The fortress of fear. We started walking again until we came to a fortress shaped like a witch's hat. According to the map, it had to be the fortress of fear. Swarms of vultures glided around, searching for bones they could pick dry. I saw something shining white on the ground. I picked it up. It was a skull. In a moat surrounding the forest, giant scorpions waved their poisonous stingers. Clack, clack, clack. I felt dizzy. When I looked up, I felt even dizzier. It'll be a tough climb to the top of the fortress, I said to Scribblehopper. The frog roared with laughter. Oh, Geronimo of Stilton, you are so funny. You cannot climb to the top, he chuckled. And even if you did, you'd never manage to get inside. The witches knew how to defend themselves. They poured down cauldrons of boiling oil and heated tar and feathers. But I know a secret passageway. It was described to me by my grandmother Frogster, who was the cousin of the hairdresser, of the nephew of the doorman, of the sister of the pottery artist, of the butler, of the sister-in-law, of the tailor, of the fortune teller, of Never Named. Never Named? I asked. Who's that? Again Scribblehopper roared with laughter. Fair knight, what planet are you from? Everyone knows who Never Named is. Then his voice dropped to a whisper. Never Named is the queen of the witches, he explained. She uses her magic powers to bully others. I was furious. No one should use their powers to harm others. What an outrage! What a tragedy! What a witch! Scribblehopper sighed. Now I'll show you the secret passageway. But I want your word of honor that you'll never tell it to anyone, he insisted. I held up my paw. You have my rodent's word of honor, I said, and I meant it. The Well of Fools. Scribblehopper slid across the ground, slinked like a salamander, just like me. That way, they won't spot us from the fortress, the frog advised. Witches not only have magic powers, but they also have incredible eyesight. And they have amazing aim. I wouldn't want them throwing stuff down on us. They can hit an ant right between the eyes from a mile away. We crept along toward the Well of Fools. Who knows how it had gotten that name? The witches threw all sorts of things down at us. A chip pot, a smelly old slipper, a rotten cauliflower, and an old broomstick. The pot clunked me on the snout. The slipper made me sneeze. The cauliflower dripped slimy mold all over my fur, and the broomstick nearly took off my tail. Cheese niblets! I'd need a long vacation if I made it home after this adventure. At last, we reached the Well of Fools. We grabbed onto a small pail that was dangling from a rope. Slowly, we lowered ourselves down. Bony skeletons shone in the darkness at the bottom of the well. Now I knew why this place was called the Well of Fools. Only a fool would try to get into the fortress this way. I was just about to die of fright when a gust of wind blew through my whiskers. Scribblehopper pointed to a hole in the wall of the well. It was the secret passageway. The passage led directly into the fortress of fear. We began climbing a very steep staircase. It was tough going. My heart was hammering. My fur was sweating. I was exhausted. Finally, after a million hours, we reached a tiny trapdoor. I pushed it open carefully. What did I see? I saw a whole mess of smelly feet. P.U. I could barely breathe. We had wound up right into the middle of the fortress's ballroom. The smelly feet whirled and twirled around the room. The whole time, their owners, the witches, cackled in high-pitched voices. What an ugly sound! Then things got even uglier. The witches had spotted us. How did you get in here? One shrieked. Who are you? Another growled. Some of them started to yank at my whiskers. Others pinched my tail. Let's throw them to the vultures. They'd love a nice furry treat. One witch cackled. I turned as pale as a piece of mozzarella. Scribblehopper didn't look much better. The witches ripped at his clothes. I want his hat. I want his vest, they cried. The plumpest of them licked her lips. Let's take them to the kitchen. I could go for some roasted rodent with a side of frog flambe, she giggled. The queen of the witches. Just then, a mysterious voice filled the room. Stop, my sisters, it ordered. Then, the voice commanded us to step forward. Uh-oh. Something told me this was no ordinary witch. She sounded like the big cheese. My paws shook with every step. Brrr. I felt like Dorothy when she was about to face the Wizard of Oz. The walls of the royal palace glimmered in the light. They were made of 1,000 tiny white bones that had been polished to perfection. There were hundreds of flaming torches and pots of burning incense. On one wall, I saw 1,000 golden mirrors. I checked out my fur as I passed by. What a disaster! I'd have to make an appointment at Clip Rat's salon and day spa when I got home. Maybe I'd even try a new style. My thoughts were interrupted by a wave of cackles. He, ha ha ha, ho ho ho. On another wall, I spotted 1,000 grinning mouths. I had a feeling that the joke was on me. Oh, why had I ever sneaked into this awful place? I wondered if it was too late to get back into the well. A shower of fleas rained down on my head. I looked up. A tiny bat hung from the rafters. It was picking the fleas from its wings. Rancid rat hairs. Did I mention I'm afraid of bugs? I was about to grab my tail and run for the door when I saw her. It was the queen of the witches. She had very fair skin and flaming red hair. One of her eyes was black and the other was green. She sat on a throne made of prickly thorns. Two humongous crows sat perched on either side of the throne. Scuttling around her was a swarm of cockroaches with tiny gold collars. The Queen of the Witches leaned forward and looked us over. Pleased to meet you, Your Majesty, stammered Scribblehopper. Queen Never Named threw him an icy smile. Then she turned to me. Who are you, stranger, and what do you want? She cackled. By now, I was feeling faint. I mean, the Queen of the Witches herself was sort of pretty. But who ever thought of a cockroach for a pet? And what was with the thorny chair? Wasn't she uncomfortable? I bowed before her. Oh, Your Witchness. My name is... I began. I have also reviewed this book on my channel. The link to that video is given in the description box. That's all for today, friends. Please subscribe to my channel. See you later. Until then, goodbye.